All right, let's talk about generative AI. We're going to move past all the hype and get right down to what it really takes to succeed with it at an enterprise level, especially when we're talking about the SAP ecosystem.
I mean, there is so much excitement around generative AI right now, and yeah, for good reason. It's an absolutely transformative technology, and pretty much everyone wants to get their hands on it and start building.
But here's the real question, isn't it? Because working with AI inside a major business, inside SAP, it is a completely different ballgame. The stakes are way, way higher. We're not just talking about cool demos anymore, we're talking about systems that run critical business operations.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start by cutting through that hype, then we'll get into what makes SAP's approach so unique. After that, we'll cover the absolute must-do first steps for studying, and then we'll build up to what I think is the most important part, that enterprise-ready mindset.
Okay, first things first. We have to draw a really clear line in the sand here. The AI that you play around with in public tools, it's awesome for experimenting, but enterprise AI, that is built for a totally different purpose. It's all about augmenting and optimizing supercritical business processes with, and this is key, total reliability.
And this comparison really says it all. Consumer AI is basically a playground. It's for asking those fun what-if questions, and it pulls its answers from this huge general knowledge base. Enterprise AI, on the other hand, is all about asking, how can we improve? And it does that by using your specific, secure company data inside these highly structured business processes. The goal isn't just to be novel, it's to deliver real, tangible, and auditable business value.
And that leads us perfectly into SAP's core philosophy. See, SAP is not trying to build another ChatGPT. That's not their game. Instead, their entire strategy is about one thing: how to safely and effectively integrate AI into the business operations that you already depend on.
The whole foundation of SAP's strategy rests on these three words: relevant, reliable, and responsible. Now, these aren't just marketing buzzwords. They are the actual pillars that make AI trustworthy enough to use in a business. So let's actually dig into how SAP makes this happen.
So to make AI relevant and reliable, SAP uses a technique called grounding. You could say this is kind of the secret sauce. Instead of letting the AI just make stuff up based on its general knowledge, hallucinate, grounding anchors its answers to your company's real, live business data. It often uses a pattern called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. This is what stops it from creating fiction and makes sure it delivers facts.
Then, to make AI both reliable and responsible, SAP gives us the Generative AI Hub. The best way to think about this is as a secure central gateway to all these different large language models. It makes sure that every single interaction is governed, it's private, and it's compliant. Your sensitive data, it never leaves your control. And you get a full audit trail. For an enterprise-grade solution, this is absolutely 100% non-negotiable. Okay, so now that we get the tech behind SAP's approach, how in the world do you start learning it? Well, the answer is actually really simple, and it's totally non-negotiable. You have to start with the official SAP Learning Journey.
And listen, this isn't just a friendly suggestion. It is the absolute core of your preparation. The Learning Journey is what gives you that essential conceptual framework. It teaches you SAP's logic, the why behind their architecture. Trying to build anything without this knowledge is it's like trying to build a house without a foundation. It's just going to fall apart.
Now, just finishing the learning journey isn't about passively watching a bunch of videos and calling it a day. If you really want to succeed, you've got to shift from just consuming content to actually creating something. Enterprise skills aren't built by memorizing stuff, they're built by doing.
This little cycle right here shows you the path to real expertise. First, you learn the core concepts from the learning journey. Then, step 2, you immediately apply them in some hands-on labs. Step 3, and this is so important for thinking like an architect, you have to constantly ask yourself why. Why did SAP design a service this way? Why does this API work like that? And finally, step 4, you refine and you validate what you've built. This active loop is what builds that deep, practical understanding that you just can't get from a book.
And that brings up a really vital skill. You're not expected to memorize every single little detail. A true SAP pro knows how to find the answer. Honestly, your goal should be to become an absolute expert at navigating and interpreting the official SAP help portal and all the other documentation. That's a real-world skill, and trust me, it's something that gets tested.
Okay, this brings us to what I think is the most important part of this whole thing, the mindset shift.
You have to stop thinking like a hobbyist who's just tinkering with a cool new toy, and you have to start thinking like an SAP architect who is building a production-ready solution. Look at the difference here. The generic approach is all about creative exploration, making cool one-off outputs. But the SAP Pro? They are laser-focused on structured problem-solving. They build solutions that are ready for production, where things like reliability, security, and auditability are the #1 goals. They refuse to treat AI like some magic black box. They have to understand the why behind it all.
So, to really get into this professional mindset, it's just as important to know what not to do. Let's walk through some of the most common traps that can completely derail learners, just so you can see them coming and steer clear.
First up, skipping the fundamentals. We've talked about that. It's like building on sand. Second, treating the Generative AI Hub like it's just another generic playground. That completely misses its core purpose, which is all about governance. Third, looking for shortcuts. In the enterprise world, shortcuts always lead to brittle, unreliable solutions. Another huge one is over-engineering, building these super complex solutions when a simple, clean, maintainable design is what's actually needed. And finally, ignoring critical things like versioning and traceability. Those are just non-negotiable for any system that's going into production.
All right, so let's pull all of this together. Let's talk about the final, coherent mindset that you really need to have to succeed. It's all about building with a clear purpose and with precision.
Success in the SAP world comes from a calm, methodical approach. You take a messy, unstructured business problem and you turn it into a structured solution that is both reliable and auditable. You work in loops, in iterations. You build, you refine, you validate, and then you finalize. It's all about discipline, not just frantic, chaotic experimentation.
You know, if you take only one thing away from all this, let it be this. Mastering SAP Generative AI isn't about chasing the latest trend or finding some clever hack. It's about a deep commitment to enterprise-grade quality. It rewards the discipline of doing the right thing, the right way, every single time. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. As you move forward on your learning journey, don't just ask yourself, what can I build? Instead, ask, how can I build this with the discipline, the reliability, and the responsibility that a true enterprise solution absolutely demands? Invest your time in the fundamentals and trust the process. You'll get there.